The 8th lesson. The dawn broke cold and colorless over Castle Stormmore, painting the eastern sky in shades of ash and iron. Edrick stood at his window, watching the 200 cultists below. They had stopped singing an hour before sunrise, returning to their silent kneeling vigil with the same eerie synchronization that marked all their movements. The Kor'thenis held. The walking boundary he'd woven yesterday remained intact, filtering the Devourer's influence while allowing his own thoughts to flow freely. But maintaining it required constant attention, like holding a muscle tensed against inevitable collapse. "You're awake early," Rose said from the doorway. She hadn't left his chambers all night, sleeping in the chair by his door with her sword across her lap. "I don't think I slept," Edrick admitted. "Time is becoming strange again." The green light in his chest pulsed steadily, matching his heartbeat. The Devourer had been unusually quiet since yesterday's revelation about the 8th lesson, which worried him more than its usual provocations. "Thinking about negotiation, are we?" The voice emerged from within, not quite his own thoughts, but not entirely separate either. "Wondering what it would mean to acknowledge my existence rather than fight it?" "No," Edrick said aloud, then realized Rose was watching him with concern. "Sorry, it was asking about the 8th lesson." "What did you tell it?" "That I'm not interested in negotiation." Rose crossed to stand beside him at the window. "But you are thinking about it." Edrick couldn't lie to her. "I'm thinking about what Illyria said, that eternal warfare might not be sustainable, that at some point I'll have to acknowledge we're coexistent beings sharing the same consciousness." "That sounds like surrender, or survival." Edrick turned from the window. "How long can I maintain this boundary? Days? Weeks? What happens when I'm too exhausted to hold it anymore?" Finally, the Devourer whispered, "You're beginning to understand." "The 8th lesson isn't about giving up," Shamaz said, entering with Illyria behind him. Both scholars looked even more exhausted than yesterday, their eyes red-rimmed from another sleepless night in the archives. "It's about recognizing reality. Reality being that I'm stuck with this thing forever," Edrick said. "Reality being that you and the Devourer are no longer separate entities," Illyria corrected. She carried a single scroll, older than the others, its edges crumbling with age. "The 8th lesson comes from the only vessel in recorded history who survived more than 10 years after full integration." "How long did they survive?" Rose asked. 43 years, Shamaz said quietly, "until they chose to end their own life rather than continue the constant warfare." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "But those 43 years," Illyria continued, "were possible because of the 8th lesson. Without it, the vessel would have broken within months." Edrick felt the Devourer's attention sharpen, genuinely interested now, rather than mocking. "What does the lesson teach?" he asked. "Differentiation through acknowledgement," Shamaz said. He moved to the center of the room, gesturing for Edrick to sit. "You've learned to create boundaries, filters, sanctuaries. You've learned to distinguish your thoughts from its influence, your sensations from its illusions. But all of these techniques are built on the premise that you and the Devourer are separate beings." "We're not," Edrick said, the words tasting like ash. "Not anymore." "No," Illyria agreed. "You're a merged consciousness. Two patterns of thought existing in one mind, using the same neural pathways, sharing the same memories and experiences. The 7th lesson taught you to maintain a boundary. The 8th lesson teaches you to maintain identity without requiring separation." "This should be interesting," the Devourer murmured. "How?" Edrick asked. "By negotiating the terms of coexistence," Shamaz said. "Not as equals, you are still the dominant consciousness, the one who controls the body and makes decisions. But by acknowledging that the Devourer exists, that it has its own perspective and desires, and that those desires don't automatically have to destroy you." "That's insane," Rose said. "It wants to devour the world." "It wanted to devour the world," Illyria corrected, "when it was free. Now it's imprisoned in a human body, dependent on that body's survival for its own continued existence. Its goals have changed whether it admits it or not." "Have they?" the Devourer asked, and Edrick couldn't tell if the question was directed at him or itself. "The 8th lesson," Shamaz continued, "involves direct communication. Not the constant warfare you've been waging, where every thought is a battle for control, but actual dialogue, establishing boundaries through mutual understanding rather than force. You want me to talk to it, Edrick said. Like it's a person. It's a consciousness, Illyria said. Ancient, alien, and hostile, yes. But it thinks, it feels, it has desires and fears. The vessel who survived 43 years learned to negotiate with their entity. They established rules, times when the entity could speak without being fought, topics that were off limits, actions that would trigger immediate resistance. And the entity agreed to these rules? Rose asked skeptically. Eventually, Shamaz said, because the alternative was constant warfare that exhausted both vessel and entity. The Devourer is patient, yes, but even patience has limits when every moment is a battle. Edrick felt the truth of those words resonate through his chest. The Devourer had been relentless since old Ravenhold, but there was a quality to its recent provocations, a weariness beneath the mockery. What happened to the vessel? Edrick asked. After 43 years, Shamaz and Illyria exchanged glances. The texts don't say specifically, Illyria admitted, only that they chose the final silence after their companion died. The implication is that they lost the will to continue without the person who anchored them to their humanity. Rose's hand found Edric's shoulder, gripping tight. The 8th lesson is dangerous, Shamaz warned, because it requires you to lower your defenses temporarily, to allow the Devourer to speak without immediate resistance, to listen to what it wants, to find common ground where possible. And if there is no common ground, Edrick asked, then you've lost nothing by trying, Illyria said. But if there is even the smallest overlap between your desires and its needs, you might find a way to coexist that doesn't require constant warfare. I'm listening, the Devourer said, and for the first time since the merger, its voice carried no mockery. What do you propose? Edrick looked at his 3 companions, Rose fierce and protective, Shamaz and Illyria exhausted but determined. They had given him 7 lessons to maintain his humanity. Now they offered an 8th that might preserve his sanity. Not yet, he said. I need time to think about this. You don't have much time, Illyria warned. The Kor'thenis is effective, but it's not sustainable long-term. You're already exhausted from maintaining it. In another week, maybe 2, you'll be too tired to hold the boundary consistently. That's when mistakes happen. Then I have a week to decide, Edrick said. But even as he spoke, he felt the Devourer's interest sharpening. The ancient entity was genuinely curious now, wondering what terms might be negotiated, what boundaries might be established through understanding rather than force. You're afraid, the Devourer observed. Afraid that talking to me means accepting me. Afraid that acknowledgement leads to surrender. Yes, Edrick admitted silently, and yet you're considering it anyway. Because you know the alternative is eventually breaking under the strain of constant warfare. You're a warrior, Edrick. You understand that even the strongest army can't maintain full battle readiness indefinitely. What do you want? Edrick asked, directing the question inward. The Devourer was silent for a long moment. I want to exist, it finally said. I don't want to be erased, suppressed, or sealed away in silence. I want my thoughts to be heard. My perspective acknowledged, my presence recognized as real, rather than something to be constantly fought. And in exchange, I might be willing to establish boundaries, to limit my provocations, to respect certain sanctuaries, to allow you periods of genuine rest rather than constant siege. Edrick felt Rose watching him, saw the fear in her eyes as she recognized he was having an internal conversation. It wants to negotiate, he said aloud. What does it offer? Shamaz asked, leaning forward with scholarly interest. Boundaries, limits to its provocations, periods of rest. And what does it want in return? Rose demanded. To be acknowledged, to have its existence recognized rather than constantly suppressed. That's how it wins, Rose said, by making you accept it as part of yourself. It's already part of me, Edrick said quietly. The question is whether I can maintain my identity while acknowledging that reality, or whether I'll eventually break from pretending otherwise. The room fell silent. Outside, the sun climbed higher, painting the cultist shadows long across the courtyard. The 8th lesson isn't mandatory, Shamaz finally said. You can continue with the first 7, maintain the Kor'thenis, fight the constant war. Many vessels chose that path. How many of them survived? Edrick asked. None, Illyria admitted. Not for more than a few years, but that doesn't mean negotiation is the answer either. The vessel who lived 43 years still chose death in the end. So my choices are break quickly through constant warfare, or survive longer through negotiation before eventually choosing death anyway, Edrick said. Or find a third option, Rose said fiercely. Something none of the previous vessels discovered. There is no third option, the Devourer said. There is only acceptance or destruction. But I am willing to make the acceptance less painful if you're willing to stop fighting me every moment of every day. Edrick stood, pacing to the window. The cultists remained motionless below, patient as stone. I need to think, he said. This isn't a decision to make quickly. Take the time you need, Shamaz said. But remember, the Kor'thenis is already straining. You have days, perhaps a week, before exhaustion makes the decision for you. After the scholars left, Rose remained, standing beside Edrick at the window. What are you thinking? She asked. That I'm tired, Edrick admitted. So tired, Rose. And it's only been days. How do I sustain this for years? Decades? Centuries? By not being alone, Rose said. By letting us help you. You can't help with this decision. It's mine to make. Then make it knowing I'll stand by whatever you choose, Rose said. Even if I don't agree with it. Even if I'm terrified of what it means. Edrick turned to face her. And if negotiation is just another form of surrender, then we'll know soon enough, Rose said. But if it gives you even a few more years of being yourself, of being my brother, then maybe it's worth the risk. Inside his chest, the green light pulsed steadily. The Devourer waited with ancient patience, genuinely curious now about what terms might be negotiated, what boundaries might be established. The 8th lesson waited, dangerous and necessary, and time, as always, was running out.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.